Hi, welcome to One for the Road, where we navigate sobriety, recovery, and life in general. Tune in as we share our experience and opinions while answering any questions you may have. My name's Marissa. This is my co-host Judy.
Hello.
And our guest Paul. He runs a page, hashtag JFTGuy, member of Narcotics Anonymous. We're super excited to have you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment, notify. Just do all this stuff. We're on TikTok, Spotify. We're on a lot of different things. And then make sure to go follow Paul on his YouTube channel also. What's the plug for the tea?
The plug for the tea is a sunflower hand blended tea concoction that we will put the link in the description for Green Salmon Coffee Company. All proceeds for that one tea go to help people of the Ukraine. So we'll be posting the link for that. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Judy. Okay, so today we obviously have a guest and we're super excited. Paul, he reached out to us and we like what he's got going on. Member of Narcotics Anonymous, which we know is a really wonderful recovery program. There's a lot of success in that. And so we have asked him to come on our show to share his experience in recovery and, how he's gotten where he's at. I know he's been sober for a while. So we're super excited. He's going to share a little bit about his story, and then we're going to ask him a bunch of questions so like we do. So hi, Paul.
Hi, Paul.
Hi, Judy. Hi, Marissa. Glad to be here.
Good. We're really glad to have you. So give us a little story. Tell us what it was like. Tell us what happened, what you're doing now.
Yeah. Of course, my name's Paul. I'm a member of Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous, both programs. My clean date is March 31st, 2013. I started my journey with drugs and alcohol when I was about 13. I have an older brother and older cousin, that I was real close with growing up. I lived in New York, just outside the city, as well as we had a place in the city there at the end. I had some family dysfunction as kids growing up, or at least I thought it was. So, and at the same time, I had a great family. It was New York in the 70s, mid 80s. There was a whole lot going on, and seemed to me that the first time I drank on purpose with some buddies was I was 13, and we were hanging out at a ball field off the Belt Parkway up around Queens. And that day we drank, what I always remember was I got drunk and they didn't, so much so that I had probably fallen asleep. And by the time I first got home, their parents were at my home, so that was really the first time that I did it on purpose. Of course, there was some drinking and that around the family and parties and holidays. But for me, that's where the journey into alcoholism, into addiction first took off. The big deal at that time was angel dust, so I found myself at 15 up in East New York, with me and my buddies, taking a bus up. I knew to go there because the older guys were driving up, and thinking back to what the alcohol did to me that first time, I wanted more immediately. And, from there, it went into just really a lifelong journey with drugs and alcohol. Now, thankfully, I made it out of high school. I made it out of college, got into the IT business. So, I still have that backdrop of life going on. But, the drug and the alcohol addiction, by the time I got to college, it was cocaine, marijuana, alcohol, uh, you know, and once in a while LSD and, everything like that way back then. That would have been early 90s, late 80s. And by that time, though, in college, I had no responsibility, but I was studying. And it seemed if I did drugs, I did better. I could study longer, work harder, etc. And, that's probably when I was at that point, that's when it became almost like a tool for me. All the times from 13 to 21, it was fun. But now I had found something that could also be effective, maybe while I was working, maybe if I stayed up late, maybe if I was out with friends, I started to do things in the morning that would help me get through. And I would have been what you would have been called, a functioning addict and alcoholic, mostly alcohol at that time through my 30s. And, I was the happy drunk or the obnoxious drunk. So, law enforcement was never part of my, that trip there. However, the pivot point in my addiction and sobriety where I could no longer have a choice was opiates. I think I was around, 28. I'd come home very drunk. At the time I was married and did all those things you're not supposed to do in the middle of the night. Leave things cooking on the stove and just a whole bunch of chaos happened. And the next morning, all I needed to do was slow down for the holidays. And so that's what I did. And that later on that afternoon, I did my first Oxycontin. And from there on, the next 3 years, I could not open my eyes or close my eyes with not having Oxycontin or opiates. And so there's where my life became unmanageable. I was in a high-end tech position by this time. Y2K was going on. So there was a lot of good things in my life. And of course, nobody knew, or I thought nobody knew, and to tell you how I had evidence that I needed help the first time was I began, like selling a house without my wife knowing to get more, I sped up to there because that's really where I needed a program like the 12 steps that we use. My first rehab was, my second day was 9/11. I was at a local recovery center, 6-month program. And, what a relief, that I had found that, I had a solution to my problem, which was, my addiction and everything that had happened those first 3 years of addiction, really what I call full-blown addiction. Like I'd be, getting high at a customer site, getting high in a computer room somewhere, airplanes, trains, automobiles, it didn't matter. But my first journey into recovery was to, 9/11. And, it worked for some time. It was 9 months. It worked as long as I was in that recovery center, looking backwards. I had formed there was a built-in fellowship. There was a built-in program for my higher power. There was work, I had to work every day. So all those things that recovery requires, boom, I had. And, I successfully went out of there 9 months. And the first day out, I used, and the reason I bring that up is because I've learned this, fast forward to my clean date. I learned that when I went into these facilities or institutions, that I needed to replace all those things before I got out. The fellowship, the best friend, like I would always meet somebody, trying to get well that was like a friend I never had. the best friend ever. We talk like nobody else, you know, you get that thing going. So, you know, from say 2001 up to 2013, you know, I would get well, get clean, become successful 2 or 3 years, and then tear it all down, you know, go into a facility, acquire all those things, stay well, leave, and immediately use, you know, because I didn't have the tools, you know, replaced by the time I got on the street. And I just say that to also add some value, you know, of if you're new in recovery, start forming them relationships in the rooms, you know, it's a we, because I know for myself, when I didn't stay clean, you know. So just adding in some recovery. But from 2001 to 13, every 2 or 3 years I would collapse. You know, it went from opiates to bath salts to crack cocaine to cocaine to you know, I didn't get into the meth, but years before we used to have it, you know, it's not nothing new, it's rampant here. But yeah, that's just a quick run through of how I got here. You know, what was it like? Every time I picked up, I started to get successful because it felt like it was a good tool, you know, to use. You know, I was in IT, I had every certification that regular people should have, you know, but I thought I was doing it with the drugs and alcohol, you know. So it was a journey through addiction. Was here's what addiction did to me. You know, everything I got disappeared when I picked up, you know, relationships, friendships, family, jobs, etc. And most of all, you know, I hated myself. You know, it was a 12-year journey of like wearing those masks we talk about. Um, so yeah, but you know, that's what it was like, you know, just constant. And I speak about it like everybody knows what it's like, you know, but you know, when I was using, it felt like everybody used. Now that I'm not using, it feels like, wow, not very many people use. You know, no wonder everybody knew. So, you know, addiction, you know, I didn't know why I was doing it. It just felt good until it didn't, you know. And you know, it's just a 12-year journey of, you know, the replacement. Oh, I won't do opiates. I'll replace it with cocaine. Well, by this time, I needed it every day. You know, 15 years before, it was once a week, once a month, once a year. If it showed up at the bar, I ran for a day or two and put it away. Um, you know, and the things that would happen on my last run, I'll tell you where I was. It was in a rental car. I had rented a car for 3 days. I had it for 9 months. You know, I was stealing gas like it was legal, and I was going through the turnpike like it was legal without a license and not paying. So, you know, telling everybody I'm an IT engineer, you know, in my work vehicle. So, but yeah, that's a little bit.
Very good. It sounds about right. I
That's
love that.
amazing.
You know, yeah. I rented a car for 3 days and kept it for 9 months. First thought was, sounds about right.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah, you know, it's so funny because although the details are different, right? And I'm over here and I'm thinking Y2K, like I remember being in school. 9/11, I remember being in school. I'm quite younger, you know, so
Right.
it's funny. But I had all those same feelings that you were talking about, right? Like the progression happened just the same, the hating myself happened just the same, you know, because the disease of addiction just does not discriminate. It just does not discriminate. So it doesn't care how old you are, black, white, yellow, green, purple, like it just doesn't care. And your story was awesome. It was
Story
so
was
good.
awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was relating to the using it as a tool, you know, like I was thinking I sure used Coke as a tool so I didn't get so like I could drink more. Like that was
Yeah.
my tool, right?
Yeah.
Like for sure, you know, I could drink for days if I had some Coke.
Yeah.
For
So
sure.
tell me a little bit about this NA thing and how, if you don't mind, like how it is that you stumble, you know, I know when I was in treatment, there was a lot of encouragement. They had AA and NA meetings and all sorts of stuff like that, because they were like, hey, what you do here is great, but what you do afterwards is more important. So what attracted you to those programs? What made you feel like that was something that you wanted to do or needed, or, what came about with that?
Um, when I first started entering the rooms, I liked what I seen. It always felt good, when I was going there, and what I had did was, meeting makers make it. Yeah, that's part of it, but that's all I would do. But, I seen like people who were getting in healthy relationships, people who were, living happily on half of what I made. They were fulfilling goals. They were telling me about sitting at home all alone and watching a movie. Like I couldn't live with myself. We know that in hindsight, but when I was experiencing it was like, I'm going to the bar. I feel like watching a movie. So the things that really attracted me was the level of honesty. Like when I was in these facilities, the walks with my buddies to the meeting, like I had never experienced the direct one-on-one relationship. And I always was attracted to that, like the conversations I couldn't have in the bar or in the crack house, I was having, so like, that's what attracted me. And things like, getting together with friends without drugs and alcohol and watching TV or, a Sunday NFL game or a baseball game, going to places and not having to worry about like, everybody else is worried about food, shelter, showers and where we're going to stay. My big deal is how much do I have so I can stay, how much drugs or whatever. But yeah, so they were just like living a normal life, honesty, open-mindedness, willingness. When I see them out in public, the people weren't looking at them like something was up. Yeah, it was just things like that, I guess.
And I mean, like when you were, in the recovery home and you were on that last one where you were, lining up the things like you said, I mean, was like getting a sponsor part of that thing? Did you need to have one as a rule, or was that like a choice of yours? And how did you go about that?
Yes, you definitely. The last time I went in, I was in this halfway house for the second time in 30 days, right? I left, I went out, and I came back. And there was a guy there, Leonard, God rest his soul. I had asked him to be my sponsor the first time I was there. And he would say things like, hey, call me tonight. I'm going to a meeting. If you don't call me, I'm not picking you up. If you don't call me, I'm not coming in on Mondays to go over your steps, things like that. And I'm not saying that works for everybody.
Right.
But yes, while I was in that house, that's when I made the decision I'm going to do what they do, outside of here. Another reason I had picked Leonard, though, this is where I was also at. Leonard was the only guy that had a 3-quarter house in that area, right? I'm in the mountains of Pennsylvania, small town, we don't have them everywhere. So that was my motive. Okay, I'll do what he wants so that I could be the first on the list when I get out of here. In fact,
Like
I'm working on getting
Working
Right.
the system.
Right.
my good
Manipulation.
intention was I was really going to try this. I had identified that everything I did, just 30 days prior, when I walked out that door, I didn't have. I was smart enough to say, okay, you have no more tricks here. You're either going to die or you're going to see what this is about. So, with my little ego, Leonard's little ego, and some hope that I had gotten from these people, I just did what they did. Leonard said, when you go to the meeting, get a phone number and call them. In fact, we're going to call them on the way home or something like that, or when we was going to Bible study, I needed to call them people too. And it was hard, when now we give out our numbers and things like that. And people say, oh, it's so hard to call, and but
Well, the
one
phone
time,
weighs a lot,
Yeah,
It's
right.
really
Very
heavy,
heavy.
when you are
Yes.
not interested, when it's new, when it's new. So Leonard really walked you through what the NA program and what people in recovery do. He really showed you how to do it, because that's what we need, right? Like we always need, if I don't know how to do something, I need someone to help show me how to do it.
Right. And
That's
I'll give an
amazing.
example where it really helped there was like I would have what you need, for a 30-day recovery house. I had friendship, fellowship, studies, steps, somebody doing it. And it felt tremendous, right? But the day I made that first phone call, it felt better. I was talking to somebody that wasn't in the house, and if you're listening and you're new, man, make it, because, it's not that this wasn't bad, because some of them, I got one guy that we still, we're both clean, but like, that's where it hit. Boom. When I picked that up, the thought of, oh, guys don't call guys and just say hello. We were having conversations about things that were going on with me, things that were going on with him. And it just felt good. Like somebody, there's no more secrets,
Mhm.
no more secrets.
What did you do when you called? Did you say my sponsor told me to call you?
Oh, I blame it on him all the time.
Just wanted to know. And
Just passing the buck
just
off.
passing it
Hey,
off.
I'm doing this because I have to.
Right, whatever works. But my question then is, when you said that, did the guy on the other end of the line laugh and like start a conversation, or was he just like, I got nothing to talk about, right?
Yeah, my other buddy Bill, I would like call him too much, because it got easy. But yeah, I mean, Leonard was tough, maybe he had some issues going on, but God, thankfully he did, he was all about putting in the work. And of course, as a newcomer, I wanted to say, sometimes felt like I'm doing more work than you. And then I learned that's what a sponsee is supposed to do,
Right.
But yeah.
The steps, did you have to work them in any sort of like time frame? Were they hard? What does that look like for someone that's coming into this program and they have someone who's willing to walk them through like what it is you do, and the curriculum, for lack of better words, is these steps. Like, what are we doing here? Like, what the hell's going on?
Well, I can tell you in hindsight what was going on. Like, I began making these phone calls. I began getting 2 or 3 friends outside the rooms. So when I went to meetings, I had my little, fellowship of people that I got close with. And then they were doing the steps, we're on the phone. They're saying, oh, I'm working through step 4. I'm working through step 1. So like, I was like, oh, he must have did step 3 must have fixed him, because he's saying he got through it, and I haven't. So like when I went to meetings, it was just, I had the phone calls, which put people in the meetings. I would talk, the before and after the meeting. I had that, in fact, even new guys coming into the house I was in, I was getting them, come on, look at this, all excited. But the steps, yeah, it was because I knew the first 2 things, the little effort I put in was working. Well, now I wanted to do the steps too. And
like a
once
real alcoholic, we want more. Give me more.
right,
Yeah.
For
so
sure.
yes, the timeline was 1 a month. I was at the house for 3 months. And when I left the house, I was working on step 4. Now that's, 12 years before that, I had, maybe did it when I had to, as an assignment, or maybe I did do step 1, but I wasn't doing it with any recovery in me. It might have just been, I was on work probation and I had to go to meetings and, hey, my brother-in-law does steps. But yeah, that's how the steps became attractive, was doing those little things. And then once I began writing them, it unleashed Paul, it started to pick out things like, oh man, every time I do that, I lose. How about I don't do that? Step
See
4.
some patterns. Yeah.
Yeah. And then where's my wins? Look at this. I'm a pretty smart guy. If I focus, I could reach goals. I could always reach goals, but I couldn't keep them, And then I seen my buddy, he was like at a job for, 6 years or something, never late, never showed up. But he also had 4 weeks vacation, because he showed up. And when I was working the steps, it put me in a position to talk like they did and reach that higher level of recovery.
And if you find some relief, then, right, it kind of, being the alcoholic or the drug addict, right, we want more of that good feeling. So, it's kind of set up there. It's kind of set up pretty perfect that if you start to feel good, you'll do more of that stuff.
Right. Yeah. And like the pivot point in life I spoke to you about, growing up in Queens, Manhattan, mid 80s, it was the mob. It was, everything was going on. New York City was just a hodgepodge of good and bad. But when I began working, I went from Park Avenue to First Avenue in a tiny town, Pennsylvania, overnight at 15. So when I began writing them steps, the things I didn't even know were going on with me began being revealed. And it's only most recent where that event in life really had such an impact on my life, decisions I make. And that's the tool for that is the steps.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm going to wrap up with this, but I just want to give you a minute, for anybody that is out there and considering doing, an NA program or any sort of like a program, like any sort of program, what can be some good parting words for them, like some encouragement, some, have an open mind, whatever, what's your big words of wisdom there for getting someone, to at least give it a shot, give it a chance.
I kind of made a little cheat sheet here. What I'll point out here is what I've been able to get through in life without the use of drugs and alcohol. I just celebrated 9 years, right?
Congratulations.
And
amazing.
Keep coming back.
Yeah, March 31st. And as I look back, I mean, what a journey, but yeah, things like this, I was my first 5 years, I had no car, right? And, I made it, and right after 5 years, I bought a car. I still have the car. It's never been illegal, my desire for being good at tech, landed me. I've gotten certified in QuickBooks, as a pro advisor. I have 2 parents that passed in the last 3 years, and was able to get through that. And I love and miss my parents dearly, but I feel like because of my higher power relationship that I got to in recovery, man, I have a good, I think I feel the way I should, with my parents passing. I made it through the pandemic. Jobs have been started and restarted 6 times. My schedule has changed. But even through some of those things, the successes would just keep piling up, no matter what shows up if I don't pick up. I've gotten a motorcycle, and I've had it for 4 years. I always wanted a motorcycle, but, drinking and drugging, you don't have time. I find other areas in life that I didn't know. One of the reasons, and I'll finish on this, ladies, I started the channel because I felt like recovery was a little bit mixed up in my life. I wasn't like feeling it. So I thought, well, why don't I read this every day? And then it turned into, why don't I let others hear it, And, now that it's been some time, what it's provided in my life is some consistency, that those things I was feeling when I started, like the pandemic has been going on for 2 years. I'm all excited. Jobs are changing and starting up. The politics is crazy. Recovery's starting up, stopping down. We got Zoom now. So in hindsight, just for putting in a little bit of work to get over those couple problems I was having, it brought me to a level where I see consistency, put me in a position where I could grab a hold of life again and be consistent. And then, when your foundation's consistent, it shows up in other areas of your life.
Mhm.
So, work and relationships and friendships. So, I just keep doing the program. I did it once, it keeps working.
That's amazing.
It is. Thanks,
That's so
Paul.
amazing.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on our show. We can't wait to be on yours. We're gonna actually kind of give our thoughts and opinions on a reading and everything. So we're really excited about that. Thank you so much for sharing your story. It was so good. I also ride a motorcycle, so that's exciting. Paul, we're gonna talk about that after the meeting. And yeah, thank you so very much for sharing your story. It was
great.
It was a great one. Yeah. Absolutely. Like, I
Yeah.
want to know more. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment, notify. Go follow Paul on YouTube, #JFTGuy. I think he's on Twitter too. And what else are you on? You're on Twitter and YouTube?
YouTube, Rumble, TikTok, sometimes Instagram, but you can find me also on Twitter. So
awesome. Yay. Okay. Thanks so much, guys. Keep coming back.
Keep coming back.
That's all for today. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Be sure to hit the notification button so you know when new posts are coming up. Keep coming back.